everybody. Thank you for joining us for today's Small Business Bootcamp. It is Tuesday, July 26th. I can't believe July is almost over, but I'm glad you're here with us. I'm Robert Theobald, Small Business Ombudsman and Vice President of Small Business Services here at the Arizona Commerce Authority, and we're excited to have you with us today. As we like to do, we like to start by thanking all of our community partners. We could not do these bootcamp sessions without their time, their effort, and their expertise. They spend a lot of time and effort to be with us, and we appreciate it very much. Those not familiar with the Small Business Bootcamp, it is a webinar series designed to help small businesses. It is a statewide initiative, and not only is it the Tuesday webinar, but it is a content library and a series of workshops with our community partners. And we'll dive into those here right now. So the content library. When we started the bootcamp series in 2020, we started by recording the very first one and continue to record every session since then. And because of the number we've done, we have a content library that's available to anyone with the internet with over 200 presentations. These are experts, community leaders, business consultants, etc. And they can help. You can access these videos and the topics to help your business and find the content you're looking for with your small business needs. Because we have so many, with 200 plus, sometimes it can be a challenge to find stuff. So we added some filters to help sort by category. But even then, if you're looking for a certain topic, feel free to reach out to us and we can guide you to the session that may best help your needs if you're looking for something specific. With that, the ACA has a number of other programs besides the boot camp and the content library that can help support small businesses. We have our small business services, our workforce division, and our Arizona MEP, our manufacturing extension partnership. These three divisions are there to support small businesses as you start and grow and scale, depending on what your needs are. Additionally, we have our small business checklist, and this is an online checklist to help entrepreneurs in Arizona or those looking to expand into Arizona or expand throughout Arizona, identifying the commonly requested licensing, registration, compliance needs at the local, state, and federal levels. We can help you identify what cities require business licenses, which ones don't, what industries need registration, and so forth. So it's a great resource, a great tool. There's a ton of information on the checklist, but for a shorter, quicker sample of some information you can use, you see there in the right-hand corner of the screen on the slideshow, is Sally, our state and local licensing information virtual assistant. Sally can help you identify some of those quick answers you may need. So jumping into our upcoming sessions, we have next week, delegation without pain, misery, and regret. And we have rebuilding and refocusing your team, growing your business, access to capital and other resources. That is a workshop on Thursday, August 11th. So when I mention our workshop series, that is part of our workshop series. It's in conjunction with the Phoenix Business Journal. And we have a number of great supporters and partners that will be speaking and looking at the challenges you face as you grow your business and how to overcome them. And then on Tuesday, August 16th, we have how to grow your customer base using the power of local SEO. And that's with Local 5. They've been with us before and they do a great job with this topic. So with that, we're going to jump into today's session. We have Ash Sobey. He's a business advisor with Prestamo CDFI. And Ash has a wealth of experience in his professional life. He doesn't list it in here, but I'm going to mention it. And he may post a link in the chat later, or Faith may do this, but Ash actually did a TEDx talk at Cal Poly Pomona a few years ago. I took the time to watch it yesterday, and it was a fabulous short talk that glad he did that. So Ash is our first TEDx speaker that we've had on here, so we're excited about that. And we're excited to have him with us today. So Ash, I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing my screen and turn the time over to you.
Thank you, Robert. That was a great introduction. I wish my wife was here to hear that and I could record this and replay for her over and over again.
We are recording it, so you can do that. You can say, hey, go to the recording.
Perfect. I'll buy it from you. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you everyone for being here. I see that there are several people here, and I really appreciate the fact that you guys are seeing me as worthy enough for your time here on this Tuesday morning to be spent like this. We have several different topics that we're going to go through. As much as possible, since we have a smaller group, I would like to keep this casual. I'd like to keep this as a roundtable conversation. If you see it fit, if you have any questions, please feel free to put it in the chat from time to time. We might also have somebody actually open up their microphones and speak to us, so that way we can go about things that way. Let me share my screen with you and begin my presentation. Robert and Faith, can you confirm that you can see my screen?
Yep, looks good.
Perfect. All right, well, welcome everybody. Thank you very much for having me here. I want to introduce Prestamos, which is a CDFI. It's a community development financial institution. It's part of a nonprofit called Chicanos for La Causa. It's a very large nonprofit that has a lot of resources. I would love for you all to do a little bit more research on Chicanos for La Causa and take advantage of this $8 billion nonprofit, because there's a lot of stuff that they offer. And I don't think I knew a lot about what they do. And I knew obviously a lot more today than ever before. And I would keep trying to promote the services that they offer to community, to other people as well, so that way they can keep track of things and take advantage of it. As you will know, as you understand more than anybody, more than most people, we're a community of business owners and entrepreneurs. The more we can offer our services to each other, the easier it is for us to get through this journey, and also the easier it is for us to have growth and expansion plans and so on and so forth. Also, I would like to introduce Minority Business Development Agency, which is part of the United States Department of Commerce. I'm an advisor to them as well, and we do a lot of different things on there as well. But today, I want to focus on the 4 buckets that are going to be coming up here. But before I go any further, first things first, thank you to Arizona Commerce Authority. Thank you, Robert, for having me. Thank you, Faith, for coordinating everything and making this work. These are obviously very valuable sessions that you're holding, and it takes a lot to put these things together. So thank you for all the hard work that you're doing in behind the scenes. And also for our attendees, as a bonus, if you would like, all the way at the end, if you stick around to the end, I'm going to show you how I go to Harvard, Yale, MIT to study their courses for free. I'll repeat that once again. I'm going to show you at the end, just in case you're interested or you might find this useful, to how to go to Harvard, MIT, and Yale and take their classes and courses for free, which is a great education. And also it's a good shiny little object on resumes and LinkedIn. And like I said, too, it's a wonderful wealth of education and knowledge that I think we should all have access to. If you don't mind, let's start with a question. Let's get a feel for what kind of businesses are in the room, so that way when I'm using examples throughout my presentation, I can tailor those examples to the industries of the businesses that are in the room. And along with that, if you don't mind, mention if you're above or below $1 million of revenue per year. So first things first, you can say, for example, I'm in the tech industry, I'm in the real estate industry, I'm in the development industry, I'm in import and export industry, for example, and we are either doing above $1 million a year in revenue or below $1 million in revenue. And Robert, if you can help me with those results, that would be great.
Yep. All right, Angelica is in the food industry and below 1 million.
Okay, food, perfect.
And Rachel's in healthcare and less than 1 million.
Okay, perfect. If we get 1 or 2 more examples, I'll continue and you guys can keep putting your industries in. But
Monique is in food service and below 1 million.
Okay, so food service. Is there 1 more?
Well, we got a few more people that haven't responded. Let's hear where you're at. You can either post it in the chat or in the Q&A.
Either way.
Hi, Michael's the executive coaching.
Beautiful.
Rachel said meant in healthcare over 1 million.
Okay. So healthcare, food, coaching, most people seem to be under 1 million. We have one or two cases probably over 1 million. If there's nobody else, let me proceed.
Okay.
All right. So for today's discussion, we're going to be talking about 4 buckets of inventory management, seasonal staffing, capital requirements, and holiday promotions. Right now, you are all doing yourself a great favor by being in this room, because we all know the season is changing, and we're going to have holidays come by. And also, if we don't prepare for them now, it's going to be too late. So right now, it's the perfect timing for us to equip ourselves to make sure we have what we need to have for the upcoming months. If I can show you this, Robert, you guys can see my notepad here, correct?
Yes, we can see it.
Perfect. Just to put things in context, August, September, October, November, December. I know these are very basic things, but allow me to be visual. We can't get things shipped to us or start selling our business stuff in December, right? Most people for the holiday season, they start shopping in November, way before December. Some of the late shoppers might be shopping in December, but as much as possible, we want to be ready here. With most things, as you are entrepreneurs understand and know, regardless of which industry we're in, it typically takes about a 3-month ramp up time for us to find the right kind of, for example, products for us to sell, for us to secure the next kind of funding that we need for our expansion plans and our growth plans. It takes 3 months for us to find the right employees and be able to recruit people that are good for our company, and so on and so forth. So as much as possible, realizing that we're at the end of July and August is starting right around the corner, we have to get started now if we want to be ready for the holidays. So thank you for being here, and I'm really glad that you're taking this seriously. If you don't mind, allow me to tell you a little bit about myself so we can put some context behind some of the things I'm saying. That way you can understand where I might be effective, and also if you feel like I might have a little bit of bias in some of these places, then you can adjust for that based on your own business strategy. As I mentioned, my name is Ash Sobey, and I happen to be an immigrant to the United States of America at age 16. When I came to United States, I was fighting for a lot of human rights out in Middle East, and unfortunately, there was a couple of groups that wanted to behead me and stone my entire family to death because of certain conversations that I was having or certain questions I was asking. With that said, my father thought it would only be safe for us to move back to the United States. My father had gotten his education here. He spent some of his childhood and college years here in the United States, and he's gotten multiple degrees. And with that said, he was very familiar with the culture, and he wanted to make sure he gives us, me, my brother, and I, that is, the same opportunities as he had growing up. When we moved to the United States, I have to say that I'm very truly grateful to all of you on this call as Americans that gave me an opportunity to be able to stay here. When I came to the United States, I came on a tourist visa, and the government and a lot of my friends and my legal advisors, people that knew a little bit more about the legal realm, they mentioned to me that it's because you don't have a social security number, you're not allowed to work. However, if you establish an EIN number, because you establish an LLC, your EIN number, your LLC, or your corporation can legally work, but you can't benefit from that corporation directly. That was a path for me to also be able to earn my citizenship and also prove to Americans and also the government that I'm a good kid. I can stay here and I can help turn the wheels of economy, and as much as possible contribute to the society, not take anything away from it. That meant no parking tickets, no speeding tickets. I had to be super squeaky clean for me to be able to prove my case to everybody here. With that said, the only thing that I was good at was technology. And I got involved more and more into technology. In my industry, I am considered an ethical hacker, meaning somebody that always finds quicker, simpler routes to get the same things done, but they're not necessarily always the traditional routes. So having a hack, for example, for inventory management is going to be something I'm going to be sharing with you. Having a couple of hacks when it comes to, let's say, recruiting strategy for us to have the most amount of candidates and the best quality candidates with the least amount of cost. These are things that I got used to. Now, as time went by, I started figuring out the parameters of how I need to prove my case for citizenship and permanent residence. And the idea was for me to become a millionaire by age 30 and also have double-digit Americans on payroll for at least 5 consecutive years or more. That would be a way for me to prove to the United States government and also everybody that I am worthy of hopefully staying here and having an opportunity to prove myself even more. With that said, I accomplished that goal by age 26, thanks to the tech world and artificial intelligence. And I got to work with companies like Lamborghini, Ferrari, UCLA, State Farm. And I was very, quote unquote, successful in the business world up until the day that I wanted to basically take my company public on the Canadian Stock Exchange. As time went by and as I kept focusing more and more and more on entrepreneurship, I forgot about my role in the society and how I'm supposed to also be a useful member of society. And at the risk of sounding too kumbaya to a bunch of professionals like yourselves, allow me to maybe use the analogy of a tree. As I was going through some health issues at some point in my life, I started doing a lot of studying about life and what life really means. At the height of my career, right before I took my company public on the Canadian Stock Exchange, I wanted to take my company public, they found 3 tumors in my brain. And unfortunately, I lost a lot of my vision. I couldn't see the computer and I couldn't really work. The only thing I was good at, which was computers, was virtually being taken away from me. And I felt like I was born in one of the worst places on earth, and here I am in some of the best places on earth. And I've accomplished a lot of things that people would love to accomplish, and they would give anything and everything to just be in the same position as me. However, they can't or they won't or they haven't been able to, and I'm here, but what am I really doing with these gifts that I've been given? And again, thank you all for giving me this opportunity, because a lot of these gifts, they're not mine, they're obviously yours, and you're kind enough to share them with me, and I'm forever grateful for those things. So I started doing studying, I started doing some research. And at the risk of sounding too kumbaya to professionals like yourselves, I would say that analogy of tree resonated with me a lot, because that tree takes the carbon monoxide that I produce or carbon dioxide that I produce and uses it as its oxygen. But in exchange, it also produces oxygen for me, which is what my body needs, which is a cool little ecosystem. So it's not like I'm doing that tree any favors and that tree is not doing me any favors. It's just part of the ecosystem. I realized the rivers don't flow for themselves, they flow for you and I. Obviously, the earth doesn't rotate for herself. She rotates so you and I can have a chance to at life. Obviously, the sun is burning herself every day to shine on you and I, so I have an opportunity to live in this world, right? Now, I also have to be grateful that there are 7.8 billion people on earth. There's one of me, and I get to be right here, right now. With that said, I have to produce as much as I possibly can for other human beings and other people in the society around me. With that said, that became my mission, that became my goal. And that's what I'm doing here today. With Prestamos and CPLC and Minority Business Development Agency, they have given me the opportunity to be able to help business owners like yourself, help people just like myself at no cost to them. And that's exactly what we're doing here. Now, with all that said, enough about me. Let's focus on the topics that we have coming up here. Inventory management is very important for us, because most of you that are in retail and are going to be selling some products or going to be handling any kind of products, especially even the ones that are in the medical field as well, unless you're doing complete no touch at all coaching, you have to understand there's products that people have to be able to buy and have access to. Even for our coach on the call as well, you have to realize that at some point, for example, you might have one of your mentees have to order a laptop or order a book. If they have to wait for supply chain, then they're going to be delayed. And that's something that we'd like to talk about and get ahead of, because there's a lot of supply chain issues that are coming up, and we'd like to make sure you guys are well prepared for it. The second topic we're going to be talking about is seasonal staffing. So over the next 6 months or so, you're going to have to probably have a little bit more staff, as long as you have the revenue for it. I'm a little bit biased. I'm a little bit more conservative when it comes to spending money. And I would like to make sure I have the revenue there before I spend the money. Or I want to make sure at least I have a virtual guarantee of that money being there before I spend the money. But as you may have heard, there's a lot of issues when it comes to staffing and recruiting right now. A lot of people still seem like they don't want to work, or there's just shortage of staff members in specific pockets and specific industries for whatever reason. With that said, your business deserves to grow. Your business deserves to take the most advantage of this holiday season that's coming up. With that said, as much as possible, we'll share with you some strategies and some hacks and tips and tricks, so that way you can have a good idea as far as how you can set yourself up with the right people and the best talent for your businesses coming up as they're growing. Third is capital requirement. Capital is one of those things that obviously business cannot run without capital. With that said, we want to make sure you're as equipped as possible to make sure you have the money when you need it. Like we talked about, most things take 3 months for them to be processed. With that said, as much as possible, we'd like to get ahead of things and make sure you have at least access to capital when you need it. And we'll talk a lot more about that. And last but not least is holiday promotions. Holidays are great times for us entrepreneurs and also capitalists to take advantage of some of the promotions that are there as consumers, but also as capitalists and business owners too. It's a way for us to push our products and our services out there for us to increase the flow of revenue, leads, or expansion plans for next year. Do you all have any comments, questions, concerns, anything you would like to share with me before I move on? And I only say that because, like I said, I like to have this be a little bit more of a conversation than only me talking to the computer. So if you have any questions, put them in the chat or put them in the Q&A. And also at the end, if we have time, I'll probably have another opportunity to answer any questions. But if you have any questions that are related to what we're discussing at each slide, please put them in the chat. And Robert or Faith, if you don't mind, if you see those questions come by, please share them with me.
Will do. None right now.
Okay, perfect. So I will move forward. First things first is inventory management. If you see inventory management in your title on your screen, I want you to read it as supply chain. Why? Because inventory management doesn't just start with your inventory, it starts way with supply chain. Now, let me tell you what has happened over the last couple of decades in our supply chain industry. Just in time has changed everything. If you're familiar with just in time, you know that just in time is a piece of technology that basically all our computers talk to each other. We don't order things in advance of time. We don't order things in bulk. We don't sit on inventory for a long periods of time. We order just in time, meaning that a lot of my supply chain vendors have access to my inventory. They see when I'm getting below a certain threshold, when I'm running lower on certain items, and then they place the order, places the order on my behalf automatically. Now, what happens is that that's a chain, right? So it goes all the way back because your retailer, for example, sends a signal to your wholesaler sends a signals to for the bulk buyers, for example, on people at the port. The people at the port send an email, for example, or get an alert sent to the manufacturers and the freight companies and the rest of it. But that's what just in time is. Now, the challenge with that, as you all know, is that we've had a pandemic over the last some years. With that said, it disrupted that supply chain. If one of these things get disrupted, everything gets disrupted, obviously, right? With that said, right now, our average shipping time is 80 to 90 days for something to be transported from Asia to US through the Pacific Ocean. 80 to 90 days, and I want you to pay attention to that. That's just shipping time. That's not handling, that's not manufacturing, that's not preparation, that's not customs, that's not insurance, that's not the paperwork, that's none of that. That's not even it getting out of the customs, getting on the trucks and getting them to you and so on and so forth. That's just the shipping time. So 80 to 90 days, which is also doubled over the previous range, which was 40 to 50. So that's a big difference. So as much as possible, keep that in mind, and I'm going to get to solutions soon here too, but remember that things just take a lot longer to get to you. I have some clients that are manufacturers or the retailers, for example, of e-bikes or scooters, e-scooters, and so on and so forth. Right now, they have to start placing their orders for anything they would like to sell before Christmas. If they don't, they're going to get all their shipments in January, February, or March, and that's going to be too late. So as much as possible, get ahead of things. The second big thing that's coming up under number one, still again, the longer shipping times, is that their new IMO regulation. IMO stands for International Maritime Organization, which is the organization that regulates ships and cargoes and so on and so forth. And their directive is to reduce carbon emissions. The only way these existing ships can reduce their carbon emissions is by going slower. So you have to, as business owners, anticipate for things like that. If these shipping cargoes or shipments are going to come to you a little bit slower, that means as business owners, we have to plan ahead and we have to plan better. Number two, as most of you probably have already felt it as well, is the higher shipping cost. I think gas prices have been going up. I'm not sure. It seems like they're coming down recently, but they have been going up. when it comes to our shipping costs, right? So whether it's planes, whether it's ships, whether it's trucks, it doesn't matter what kind of shipping it is, we have to anticipate for more costs. That means we also have to calculate our cost of goods sold better. That means our services that we're offering. Some of you are in service industry. That still means that you still have more costs because inflation also hits you as well. Not just personally, but also when it comes to business. You might just think that you have a business only, right, which is service-based, but still you need a computer. You still need you need business cards. You still need utilities. And as costs of these things go up, you have to anticipate for these things. Shipping cost of the container went from $1,800 through the Pacific Ocean to $18,000 right now. That means for every single item that's on that shipping container, we have to calculate that additional cost and make sure we're increasing those items accordingly, so that way we can make up for those costs. Otherwise, our business is in a lot of trouble. So even though you might be in service business, even though you might not be shipping anything, make sure you are keeping these things in mind and understanding that your profit and loss is very important at this point in your business. You have to keep track of as much cost as you possibly can. Make sure you have somebody else also looking at your books for you, and make sure you're not getting caught off guard when it comes to your cost going up this year before you place bigger orders for the end of the year. Now, third is port congestions. Our busiest ports in the United States right now are Los Angeles and Long Beach ports. Now, as you have heard probably, and you've seen on the news, they're very congested. We don't see as many ships being parked in the bay right now. Why? Because we are pushing them further out for pollution purposes and so on and so forth. So it's not like it's gotten better. Unfortunately, having talked to a lot of people in the industry, things unfortunately have gotten worse since January. With that said, you have to be a little bit smarter. If you are in charge and if you can make these decisions, one of my suggestions would be to reroute your goods to Houston, Seattle, and Charleston. There are other ports besides Long Beach and Los Angeles. If you can reroute some of your shipments to Houston, Seattle, or Charleston, then you will probably get them a lot faster and with a lot less headaches. Now, as you also probably already can imagine, there's a lot of pressure on the employees at these ports. There's a massive amount of pressure on every single person that touches any of these buckets. With that said, there's a chance that we might have strikes. There are potential strikes that might be coming up as things get harder and harder and harder for some of these ports. Plan for that. God forbid there's a strike and customs are not getting shipments through, or they're not passing anything through, that will affect your business. With that said, make sure you're getting ahead of these things. So now solutions. Some things for you to consider, maybe some questions first. Can we 3D print our products? So some of you that have been ordering products, for example, from overseas, or some people that have been maybe even manufacturing things here, maybe now they realize that, hey, I can 3D print my own products. And you don't always have to go buy your own 3D printer either. There's a lot of other organizations that do these kinds of things. And I have a couple of other ideas around the same thing that I'll probably share with you later. But consider 3D printing some of your hard products that you have. Also, consider sourcing some of your products or services that you need locally. If you can source these things locally versus having to go through inventory and so on and so forth, that's a really good thing. Now, third items on that list as well is getting other partners in the industry. So if you can find other people that are helping bits and pieces of this place in the supply chain, for example, Rainbow, that really truly helps you. When it comes to more solutions, some ideas, tell your customers to order now, because as we've talked about right now, when you see this, you realize that I have to get ahead of things. I have to place my orders ahead. But like I said, as a businessman, as an entrepreneur, I don't like to spend money unless I have a guarantee that I'm going to make money on that money. So if I order things too much in advance right now, I might be sitting on a lot of inventory. So in my heart of hearts, I can't just recommend you going out there and buying more inventory, because you might be sitting on it if you can't sell it. So my recommendation in that case would become to have your customers order now. Start promoting these things. You know, a lot of your customers are probably going to be strapped. A lot of executives, even for people that are in service business, they are going to go on holidays towards the end of holidays, towards the end of the month in December when it comes to holidays. With that said, get ahead of these things. Make sure you understand their needs after the holidays. Make sure you're planning for 2023. As much as possible, have your orders, have the commitments of your customers and your clients come in earlier, and encourage them to do that by explaining the same thing things to them, letting them know, hey, if you want XYZ for next year, or if you want your products for Christmas, for example, or if you want your gifts, for example, for the holiday season, or whatever the case may be, plan right now. Some of you who are coaches and consultants, let your customers know that your clients know that by the time we get to the end of the year, your chances are you're going to be disappointed with your goals. So plan now. We still have the 3 months that we need before we get towards the end of the year. So that way we can make sure we're meeting our goals. Next is upping your technology when it comes to inventory management, when it comes to supply chain. There's a lot of pieces of technology. I highly encourage you to do some research, and any corner that you can, make sure you're upping your technology. If you're using a software for bookkeeping, you guys have had workshops about bookkeeping before, right? Make sure you're upping your technology there. When it comes to, for example, tracking of your shipments and packaging, make sure you're upping your technology so in live and real time, you know exactly where your shipments are. If you see they're stuck at customs, then you can go save them. If you see that they're stuck, for example, on the ship somewhere else, then at least you can make some phone calls. So as much as possible, up your technology. Next is separating your supply and manufacturing from your freighting and shipping. A lot of people that are in retail, a lot of people that do, for example, even wholesale, for example, they have the same manufacturers that manufacture the products also ship the products. That's typically not a good idea. Shipping companies are only specialized in shipping, and the manufacturers are only specialized in manufacturing. The problem is it's just easy for us to have this be just the same person. But the problem occurs when you have issues like supply chain issues like we have right now. If the specialty of that company is not necessarily shipping, they're not going to know who to call. They're not going to be able to find the right person in FedEx and track down a shipping and a package and so on and so forth. So as much as possible, separate your manufacturing from shipping. Next is increasing inventory. As much as possible, increase your inventory where you feel like these are the products that have sold historically really well over the last few years. I want to continue doing that as much as possible. And if I can, using the right software as the right management software, then I can strategically and carefully increase my inventory when it makes sense. When it comes to the increasing that inventory, though, one of my suggestions that I've recently seen in the last 3 months, it seems like it might just be easier and cheaper for a lot of our small businesses to store their products in several smaller warehouses rather than one big one. So as much as possible, consider that. Also, entrepreneurs, realize that you are an entrepreneur. You have other resources, unlike other people. So get creative. If you have buddies, if you have friends that, for example, own land, ask them if you can park your shipping containers on their land. Ask them if they, for example, have a big warehouse that they're not using or they're going through some financial trouble. Maybe you can pay them a little bit of rent. Maybe you can pay them a little bit of a contribution and help them with their mortgage or rent or what have you. And that way, you also get a much better deal than you would have from a commercial storage place, and also they're getting a little bit of help. So start thinking outside the box. Next is also getting other people within your circles of friends to build businesses around things that you're lacking. So for example, if you find an opportunity that when it comes to candy shipping, it's very ineffective. You know what I'd like to do? I'd like to talk to Jorge and I'd like to talk to Nick and Sam, my friend. And if I can bring all three of them together, maybe I'll pitch them this idea, say, hey guys, girls, you should totally think of a business ideas and totally go with this. And if you can't figure it out, let me know, because I am in the industry or at least parallel industries, and I can at least give you tips and ideas. But this is, since I'm in the industry, I see this being a huge lack in our candy industry, for example. If you guys can figure out the logistics in candy, for example, that would be a good thing for you. My next recommendation is diversifying your routes when it comes to shipping and supply chain, and also the vendors you're using and the vehicles. We talked about diversifying the route, for example, being able to use different ports. Some of you that are sourcing your products and versus locally too, consider different routes when you see wildfires or tornadoes or tsunamis or some other natural disasters that might be happening depending on the regions you're in. And also consider different vehicles. If you've typically been shipping with trucks, consider railroads, consider trains. If you've typically been using planes, for example, consider shipping ships and cargoes ships, for example, right? Consider different routes, consider different alternatives, and do a little bit of research and figure out what makes the most amount of sense for your line of work. Two more things on here. One of my favorite things recently, entrepreneurs, has been looking things up on Google and starting the search with, what is an alternative to? So I'd like for you to take that tip with you. everywhere you go. I would like for you to start doing that. The kind of a phase we might be going in the next 6 to 9 months is the kind of phase that we have to look for alternatives. If I need, for example, starch, somebody said that they might be in cooking, for example, in the food industry. If I need starch and I see price of potatoes are rising through the roof, maybe I should reach out to some of my Asian friends and ask them about where do you buy your rice? If you buy rice and your rice has as much starch as, let's say, for example, potatoes, I would be curious as far as where you source your rice. How do you get it so cheap, for example, right? As much as possible, build those networks around you. Google things for alternatives to shipping containers, alternatives to building homes using traditional material, anything and everything that you need around the house, personally and professionally, to start Googling it with the phrase starting with alternatives to, and you'll find a lot of other alternatives. And last but not least, with all that said, plan ahead for your own sake, for the love of anything you love. Make sure you plan ahead. It's a guarantee that this is coming up, and it's a guarantee that we are having supply chain issues. So as much as possible, plan ahead, and you might need a little bit more capital to plan ahead for these things, which is going to be the next couple of slides, and we're going to get to that soon. Next, one of my favorite topics is staffing and recruiting. I was recruited to this job, and I had applied for a lot of different jobs before I was recruited to this position particularly, because the person who wanted me at this position really wanted to work with somebody like myself with the same set of skill sets that I possess at this current moment for this role. With that said, I would like for you to always be recruiting. Anytime you all are going to restaurants, anytime you're going shopping, anytime you're going to Costco, anytime you're going to dry cleaners, you're interacting with other human beings. Always be recruiting. One of the things that happened in my life is when I was 12 years of age. A friend of my father walked into a room and I had two computers that I was connecting together. This is back in the 90s. And he asked me, he's like, "Kiddo, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm making this computer talk to this computer." I said, "How do you do that?" And I showed him how I do it. He asked, "Can I pay you $400 for you to come over to my store and have my computers talk to each other?" I looked at him, I looked at my father, I was like, "If you can talk to my father, because I can't get paid because I'm a minor still, but if you can pay my father and guarantee that he's gonna give me that money, then I'll do it." He looked at me, he laughed, he's like, "No, I'm not gonna do that. But do you still want the job?" I said, "Yes, absolutely." So that's how I got paid for the first time. But I got recruited. And I asked the same gentleman, "Why did you do that?" He's the one who told me, every time I go to a restaurant, when customer service is really good, when the person who's serving me is really good, I strike up a conversation with them. I ask them, "How much money do you make? Are you happy here? Do you want to do something different? Here's my business card in case you are looking for a different opportunity, let me know." Always be recruiting. Always realize anywhere you go, you have access to a lot of talent, but we're not thinking about it that way. One thing that really breaks my heart is that there's a quote here that I have that I like to use. We spend 10% of our time recruiting, 90% of our time making up for the recruiting mistakes. If you think about it, that's very true for you and I as business owners as well. We don't spend very much time at all on recruiting. We typically do it last minute when we absolutely need it. With that said, we're not giving it really, truly a fair shot. And then on the back end of it, we spend 90% of our time trying to fix that recruiting mistake that we just did. And sometimes too, I hate to say it, but I hope you take this to heart, we blame the recruit. We say, "Oh, so-and-so did not work out." But the right thing to say and the right thing to do would be to turn that question on us. Say, what did I misread? Because I interviewed that person, right? What did I misread about that person? How do I do my job better when it comes to having a better recruiting strategy? Number two is the difference between sources versus recruiting. I did not know the difference between these two for many, many, many years. But now that I do, life has gotten a lot easier for me on the business side. I own 3 companies on my own, and also I'm an investor and involved in several other tech companies as well. And I cannot stress this enough. Sourcing or recruiting, they're both very important. But sourcing is when you have access to a pool of talented people and you can reach out to them anytime you want to at will. Recruiting is the active process of making sure you're interviewing them, you're putting them through the process and offering them the position and so on and so forth. So there's a little bit of difference. This is kind of like window shopping, warming up, and this is actually closing the sale and actually making things happen. So I suggest you do this all the time. Sourcing is always being recruiting. Recruiting and sourcing is always used interchangeably. I use recruiting here, but what I really mean is sourcing, but I only use it because it's a common term in the business world. But what we should really be saying is always be sourcing. On LinkedIn, for example, it's very easy for you to join a lot of professional groups. Always be sourcing. It's very easy for you to join a lot of, for example, groups that are helping people professionally develop their careers. Join those, offer your mentorship there, for example, if you can, but always be sourcing. Now, when it comes to actual recruiting, then our strategies change a little bit. That basically means for us to build a pipeline. That means that we have to create a persona and we need to consider alternative jobs titles. Let me explain. When it comes to recruiting, we should have a pipeline. We should have several people in our pipeline. So when we need a position filled, we can say, oh, hey, let's go to that Excel sheet. All these people that have been tagged, for example, that we talked to last year or the past so many years, for example, let's call on these people. Let's see where they're at. If we can make things work, that would be great for us. So having a talent pipeline is very important. You can use a CRM or you can use anything else you want, including a simple Excel sheet. And I highly suggest you do that. Now, when it comes to recruiting, though, I'd love for you to have a persona. Write down the characteristics of the person you're looking to hire. Maybe have one or two personas, but specifically write down anything and everything you're looking for in that person. So right when that person is in front of you, you're like, ah, there you are. I've been looking for you all my life, right? So creating a persona is really good because it really makes us not want to settle for a talent that we might not necessarily be 100% about. If you have a persona, you can always make exceptions and adjustment that, hey, so-and-so, for example, doesn't have such and such, but they're better at this and that, whatever, right? Now, last item on that topic is also using different job titles. People use different job titles to refer to the same exact positions. And you have to know that. So the job title you're using right now might not be attracting the right kind of talent. So as much as possible, make sure you're using alternative job titles. Ask people what job titles they would use probably if they were looking for such a similar job, right? Or position. As much as possible, use long strings, use long titles, and include so many words in there that something hopefully resonates with the candidates. And last but not least on that topic, make sure you're also starting your search internally. Ask your spouse, ask your friends, ask your best friend, ask your neighbors, ask your places that you're going to. Hey, I'm looking to hire a videographer. I'm looking to hire a receptionist. Do you know anybody? Somebody say, oh yeah, actually my cousin. Oh, hey, my company recently fired so-and-so and they're such great employees. Please make sure you hire them if you see it fit. My last item here on the list is also creative recruiting strategies. I'll share some with you, so hopefully you can take some nuggets from it and go from there. My first recommendation is throwing recruiting parties. We throw parties all the time. We throw corporate parties all the time, but for recruiting, we don't throw parties. I highly suggest you do that. We do that a lot in our industry and it works really, really well. If you throw a party and say free food, everybody bring your friend, bring your most talented friend. Hey, this is a party and the theme is being nerdy, for example. Bring all your nerd friends, bring all your geeks, bring all your gadgets, bring all your toys, whatever the case may be, right? If you throw these parties and you make them really fun, you're gonna have a huge pool of sourcing people and a huge pipeline of recruits that you can always call on when you need it. My next recommendation, and this is a big one, probably one of the most important recommendations in this presentation, hands down, hire with videos. Maybe if I can, maybe I can show you my LinkedIn page here. Robert, can you see my LinkedIn page?
Yep.
So this is my LinkedIn page, as you guys know. This is jobs, right? I go to jobs, I go to my jobs. I applied for 1,842 jobs. And these are all the jobs that I applied for. All these jobs, right? I selected this job because every single one of them, and I hate to say it with all the respect, majority of them, their recruiting strategy was not very good at all. It didn't resonate with me. I wasn't really impressed by that. So would you say I know a thing or two about recruiting, having applied for so many jobs? And one thing I can easily tell you is nobody's using videos. I highly beg you and encourage you and urge you to please hire with videos. Make a video about yourself, make a video about your business. Let people get that feel of who you are and get that energy. And as much as possible, hire with videos, because if I see one more job posting, I would not know what to do with myself. Everybody says the same thing. Oh, we need a team player. We need somebody who's loyal, who's sharp, can think on their feet, and so on and so forth. As much as possible, refrain from saying repeated things and hire with videos, not text. We're all terrible at recruiting, and we have to realize that. And as much as possible, we have to be understanding of where we go wrong. So here are some of the similar mistakes or common mistakes that happen. Number one is that we make a quick decision. We find somebody that we feel like, they're semi-decent and it's probably they're going to do the job okay, and I don't have a whole lot of time, so let me spend time on this, right? Or let me hire this person. So as much as possible, refrain from making quick decisions. Number two problem is that a lot of us hire ourselves. Like, well, I'm the best employee I've ever seen, right? So if I can just hire somebody just like myself, they're going to be amazing. And that's typically wrong, because you need people that help support you, not do the exact same things that you are capable of doing. If we're all good at the same thing, then nobody's covering our weaknesses. The third problem is that A's hire B's, B's hire C's, and C's hire D's. So if you're an A player, don't hire a B player. If you're a B player, don't hire C quality players. Do the exact opposite. Realize that you might be a B player when it comes to accounting. You might be an A when it comes to, for example, cooking, but you might be a B or a C or maybe even a D when it comes to accounting. So when you're hiring an assistant, make sure the assistant, for example, is great at accounting, because that's how they cover your gaps. Last but not least, when it comes to mistakes, when it comes to hiring, is don't interview for confirmation bias. 99% of employers pretty much make the decision within the first few minutes of the interview, and they say, yes, this is the right person, and I'm just going to confirm through questions that this person is right for me or not. Don't do that. Always reserve your judgment all the way till the end to make sure you're giving everybody a fair shot. And my last recommendation here is create 3 buckets. Realize that there are 3 things that have to contribute to a scoreboard sheet that you are using to keep track of all your candidates. The first bucket is their brain, which has to do with RQ. Their second bucket has to do with their heart and EQ and their values. And the third bucket has to do with tools, which is their resume. If somebody has brain, that means they can be a good manager and think on their feet in very tough decision-making circumstances. But if they don't have a heart, if they don't have values, they will never keep the team ahead of their own financial projections, for example, or financial growth, and so on and so forth. So as much as possible, you want to make sure they have brain, but also heart as well. If they have the brain and the heart, but they don't have any tools or skill sets, they're still not going to be able to get the job done, but that's why we have the resumes and we read resumes. So have those 3 buckets in your hand of brain, heart, and tools to make sure you can hire the right people for yourself. Now, next is our capital requirements. Accessing capital definitely takes a lot of time. You need to be able to prepare for yourself before it gets too late. All the above items that we mentioned, everything that we've talked to you about so far definitely requires capital. And I don't know about you, but I hate using my own personal savings account. I always prefer using smart money versus my own money. OPM, other people's money, for example, is a commonly used term when it comes to entrepreneurship. If you can use somebody else's capital, why not? You also give them an opportunity to make money off of your money. At the same time, you don't have to take the risk if you're doing it the right way. So make sure you're getting ahead of things and plan for these things. Apply before you actually need capital. A lot of times we actually apply for when we need the money right now, but you have to realize it takes several months. It takes 3 months for us to collect all the information, like tax documents, personal financials, collateral, what have you. It also takes you time to collect these documents. It takes us time to review the documents. It takes time for approving. And also remember, as entrepreneurs, you need to give yourself enough time to shop things around. If somebody came to you and gave you a deal, that's great, but don't settle for the first deal. If you got a great deal from such and such bank, that's wonderful, but go across the street and shop that deal around with other banks as well to make sure you're getting the best financial partner for yourself. Number 2 is the financial climate coming ahead of us. I don't know about you, and I can't really confirm this for sure unless the official announcement come down the pipeline, but it seems to me the last 2 years we've had a lot of help, and in the next 2 years we might just not have as much help. A lot of people in the last 2 years, for example, didn't have to pay rent or their mortgage. In the next 2 years, they're going to have to do that. A lot of people were getting unemployment, for example, or stimulus checks. It seems like in the next 2 years, we're not going to have that coming in, or as much of it coming in, if anything at all, right? With that said, things are going to tighten up. So make sure you are set up for that. If the financial climate is going to get tightened up, get smart right now before it's too late. August is a wonderful time for you to up your credit score. Google this. Google ideas and strategies to up your credit score. You will find a ton of great information for free, and I've used some of these information myself, and it works, and it's an incredible resource, and I highly encourage you to up your credit score. My next kind of recommendation is negotiating all debt. As much as possible, negotiate all debt. Go back to people that you might have a little bit of debt with and start negotiating with them. Say, hey, this is how much I can pay. Can you please be kind to me? And start negotiating that debt as much as possible and make that as an active part of your business. Reduce the existing debt that you have and also consolidate debt if you're possible. If you're going to apply for capital at some point, if you're going to need some sort of access to capital, which hopefully with your business growing, you're absolutely going to need that, because if you have extra capital, then you can grow faster and then be able to pay that back easily. So consolidate your debt so it makes things easier when other people are looking at your financials. And manage your finances using automation. There are a lot of tools that you guys have been hearing about in these workshops and these seminars. So please, as much as possible, use those tools. The one I like to use the most is called mint.com, MINT.com. Third is plan for it before you need it. Chances are things will be cheap again, right? We have had a lot of inflation. People are going to stop buying. It's simple rules of supply and demand. As the supply drops, the demand goes higher and higher. As the demand goes higher, supply drops, right? Or as the demand decreases, supply goes higher, right? Or if supply goes higher, demand decreases, right? With all that said, the point is you're going to have access to capital because things will be cheap. If you apply for capital when you need it, you're not going to get it. It's going to be too late. So secure alternative funding routes as much as possible, even if that means friends and family, crowdfunding, looking for grants, what have you. As much as possible, get ahead of things before things get too late. We're getting towards the end of our presentation, so let me cover the 5 C's here for credit, so that way you guys have something very easy to keep in mind when it comes to accessing capital. First things first is character. This has a lot to do with you. This has to do with your history. Can you take on a debt? Can you pay back that debt? What's your history like of taking on debt and paying those back? Which obviously basically contributes to your credit score. So that's what we've talked about as far as improving your credit score, and that's something that the financial institutions look at heavily. So as much as possible, make sure you have that cleaned up and it's looking really good. Number 2C is capacity. Does your business have the capacity to make enough money to not only make enough for yourself, but also pay our loan back, right? That debt to income ratio, for example, that cash flow is very, very important. So as much as possible, make sure your P&Ls are together and make sure everything that is about your business is separate from your personal life. And because we have some small business on this call, and as much as possible, make sure you can easily show your ability to repay the loan back, showing enough cash flow and so on and so forth through your profit and loss statements. Number 3 is the insurance policy, is the collateral. These are assets that I can tell a bank, for example, of CDFI, Community Development Financial Institution, that look, I have a good character. I have a score of 600 or more, 700, hopefully, or more, right? For example, I also have the capacity. Look, I'm making an extra $5,000 every month. I can totally take on this extra payment of, let's say, $1,000 a month, even if so, right? Plus, let's make a bet. Third one is collateral. Even if I couldn't pay that back, for example, here's my collateral in exchange. You can take my car, you can take my house, whatever it is, right? Let's make a bet that, hey, I can have this money, I can pay it back, but if I couldn't, hey, bank, you have a little bit of collateral there as well, right? That's what they're all looking for. So I'm just telling you this ahead of time so you can make sure you're planning for these things ahead of time before you even apply for capital. The next is the capital. This is the borrower's personal investment. This is how much skin you have in the game. If you say, I'm looking for $1 million to start XYZ business, but I want it 100% finance, given our future financial climate, people might not necessarily trust that because they say, well, we're taking on the risk. Where's your commitment? How much skin in the game do you have? So as much as possible, you have to plan for that and make sure you have some sort of skin in the game. If I came to you and you're a bank and I said, hey, here's my character, I have the capacity, I have the collateral, and also with the capital I'm asking for, I am personally, for example, buying 50% of this building, I'm asking you to come in for the other 50%, right? So I'm showing you that I have a lot of skin in the game and I'm putting my mouth or my money where my mouth is. And last but not least of the 5 C's is the conditions. These are things that might be a little bit out of your control at the current moment, but we have to factor these things in and we have to understand what's the purpose of the loan? What line of work are you in? For example, healthcare is a very important line of work, right? And that's not going to go away. More and more people are going to keep spending money on healthcare. So that might be a good condition. But if you happen to be a tech company and the markets are melting, for example, that might not necessarily be a best thing for you. All right, last topic for us to cover is our holiday promotions. Number 1 is power of community. Now, before I actually go any further, Robert, we might need a little bit of extra time. Is that okay?
Yeah, we have a little bit extra time we can use.
Perfect. That's great. And if you all don't mind, I'll probably take a little bit more extra time. If you need to go, that's okay. I have my email address at the end. You can reach out to Robert as well and ask him for my email address. I'm happy to have one-on-one conversations with you if you need to, if you don't get to some of the things that we want to get to today. And before I cover this slide, Robert, are there any questions?
No, we do not have any questions at the moment.
Perfect. All right, holiday promotions. Number 1 is power of community. One of the things I got really good at was marketing strategies, right? That's how you grow a business. So as much as possible, I would like for you to remember power of community when it comes to especially your social media. Use the power of your community to increase your sales during the holiday season. For example, you might say, I have a promotion and I'm looking to highlight mom entrepreneurs this month or this week. So tag your favorite mom entrepreneur below, and I'm going to select one person to give coaching to or XYZ consulting to or a gift to for free. That gets all your community members to read that post, think of one of their friends, tag a friend in that post, then their friend sees it. And on average, every American has 250 people in their network. So all of a sudden, we're exacerbating and increasing their scaling the reach that we have for our promotions. You can say tag your favorite nurse below, and I'm going to select one nurse that I'm going to basically do XYZ with, right? Tag your favorite teacher below, tag your favorite medical executive below, right? Depending on what kind of industry you're in, you can always use the power of your community, and you have social media at your power and your fingertips to be able to do that a lot easier and better. Last on that power community promotion stuff is also you can offer for them to bring a friend, for your customers to bring a friend, and their second order, for example, could be 50% off. So not only you come in and I get one order from you and a second order, you bring in a friend from you with you and I get their first order and a second order, but your second orders are 50% off. That makes the community member feel special. That makes them want to promote this to their friends and family as well. And at the same time, you also increase your business with the same exact promotion. Next is run a holiday photo contest. As much as possible, have people take photos with you or your products and have them post. People hang out with their own kind of people. If I'm a golfer, chances are I know other golfers. If I'm in the medical world, chances are I know other people in the medical world. So if I hang out with such and such executive and I post a photo, all their friends are going to see it as well, and I'm going to give myself an opportunity. So run holiday photo contests. Have people take photos with your products and post them on their social media, tag you in it, you repost it, and you get exposed to their network. Next is offer a tour. You can say a day in the life of a baker, for example, a day in the life of a hacker, a day in the life of a marketing executive, whatever the case may be, offer a tour and publicize these things as much as possible. Create community around you and make sure you're getting your people to act as almost as an army to help promote your business. Number 2 is power of partnerships. We all should have partners in business. A lot of our partners are virtually going after the same target demographics. They use so many resources and so much of their time to recruit these customers and these clients. With that said, partnering with other businesses in the similar or parallel line of work helps us. For example, if I sell steak, I want to pair myself up with a partner that sells wine. Why? Because wine and steak go really well together. If I were selling wine, I might want to pair myself with somebody that maybe has a cigar lounge. Why? Because people that smoke cigars also like wine. If I, for example, do IT security, I might pair myself up with a company that's physical because people that are looking for physical security might also be worried about their digital security as well. So use the same pool of leads. If they have a CRM or they have an email list, strategically align yourself with them so that way you can go back and forth as far as using each other's resources. Third one and last one on this list is give back to your customers. I hate to admit to this as a tech person, but even as a tech person, even being so involved with artificial intelligence, social media platforms early on, and to this day, I have to admit that word of mouth is still the best marketing strategy. Pass your savings along. For example, if you post a marketing strategy and you post a marketing promotion and say, hey, we actually got 20% off of our shipping containers, for example. We're going to pass this along. Anybody that mentions this post, we're going to also give you 20% off because we want to make sure our customers are getting the savings. Word of mouth. If most people are going to see that, they're going to talk about it, and that's a really important thing. Mr. Wynn, that owns the Wynn Resorts in Las Vegas, he had an employee at some point that had two customers, an older wife and a husband, come up. And as soon as they wanted to check into the hotel, they had forgotten their medication bag back in California. So they wanted to cancel the trip and they had to go back to California to get that medication that night because they couldn't be without medication that night. And it was 1 o'clock, and that night by 10 o'clock or midnight, they had to have that medication. So long story short, since we were running short on time, that employee at Wynn Company and Wynn Resort actually took the time to drive all the way to California, pick that stuff up and bring it back to the customers without telling the customer, saying, hey, no, don't cancel your stuff. Let me know when your medication is, and I will make sure, I promise you, it will be in your hands, no worries at all. Whatever we got to do, we'll make sure it's here. He drives personally himself, gets that medication and brings it back. That's called customer service. And well, guess what happens? That same customer is going to now go around forever. For the rest of their lives, they're always going to be repeating that story. So create customer success stories. Create these cultures within your companies to have these stories and these trials, and as much as possible, give back to your customers so that way you have a good, solid strategy. So as we wrap up our conversation, you do know that we have a lot of free resources and additional supports here as Perstamos. If you need anything from me personally, always count on me as a friend. We have a lot of no-cost assistance for eligible micro businesses that we service. We have a lot of accounting services that we do for our clients, again, at no cost to them at all. We do a lot of marketing, social media, coaching, website design, HR work, all kinds of things at no cost at all. And also, because Perstamos is a community development financial institution as well, something that I did not know it even exists is microloans, and some of these are going as low as $1,500. So if at some point I had a business and I was short $1,500 for payroll, for example, I can easily use a microloan for me to be able to cover that and so on and so forth. These are things I did not know about when I was developing my agencies and my companies as an immigrant. I really, truly wish I knew, because this would have made life a lot easier for me. So I urge you to do as much research as possible. Check out perstamosloans.org as well, because all our free services are listed there as far as what you can take advantage of at no cost to you. And I highly encourage you to not let these opportunities go by, because you've paid for them through your taxpayers and they're there for you. And last but not least is my contact information. Thank you all again very, very much for allowing me to go a few minutes over. This is my email address, ash.sobey@cplc.org. Anytime you need anything from me, feel free to send me an email here. If you also would like me to personally spend some time with you, I'm happy to do that if there's some things that we have not been able to cover here. But this is the end of my presentation, and I thank you for sticking around this late. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer those.
All right, thank you, Ash. We have one question from Rachel. Says, excellent presentation and valuable tips. Maybe please have the Harvard resources. You mentioned about accessing those Harvard resources for free.
Oh, yes, cool, good. I'm glad you actually reminded me of that. Very cool. Let me do that. Okay, so who was asking that question?
Rachel asked about it.
Rachel. Very good, Rachel. Thank you for reminding me of that. And I'm going to show you how simple and easy this is going to be. Are you ready? So first things first, we go to Google. And watch very carefully, because this is an important piece. Yale free online courses, right? You click on Yale. Hang on one second. You click on Yale. All right, this is their website. You see it's Yale University, it's yale.edu. This is Open Yale courses. You click on courses, and these are all the courses that they have. So if you want to study astronomy, you can. If you want to study chemistry, you can. If you want to study economics, which as business owners, I highly, highly encourage you do, absolutely click on those. At some point, I was interested in philosophy, for example, or physics, or political science, or psychology. I can come into any of these. I can click on any of these. And as you can tell, this is the actual website. These are the course stuff, the description. This is the syllabus. And then these are the sessions. This is my favorite part. This is what makes our country one of the greatest countries on earth, because we have no excuses when it comes to success ever again. Everything that we want is right here. This is an Ivy League schools with a camera in front of the professor teaching you all these things for free. Now, let's do one more, if you don't mind, since Rachel asked for it. I'm going to type in MIT free online courses, and they have this website. I was just showing this to somebody else because she wanted to be in the tech world and she wanted to get into energy efficiency. I told her, why don't you study nuclear reactors at MIT? She said, I can't afford that. I said, good. Let me show you how to do it for free. You come here. This is MIT open courses, right? You type in nuclear reactor. You hit search. Believe it or not, same exact thing. You can become an engineer of nuclear reactors. You can read all kinds of things about them at one of the best universities in the entire world for free. So we have no excuses anymore. Make sense?
Yeah.
I can show you Harvard as well, but believe me, it works the same way.
All right. Well, thank you, Rachel, for asking that question and following up with that. I want to thank Ash for his time today. For those not familiar, Prestamos is a key partner of ours. They've done a number of boot camp sessions for us throughout the pandemic and post-pandemic. They are a great resource for small business owners as well. They also run the Women's Business Center in South Phoenix. So that's a great facility to check out. And even though it's called the Women's Business Center, they also work with any small business owner. So again, thank you, Ash. Thank you, Prestamos and CPLC for being part of this. And with that, we will go ahead and wrap up. We invite everybody to join us next Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. for our next webinar. But until then, everybody have a great week. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Have a good day. Bye-bye.